the heart of the Valley of Mexico, where mist rises from the vast expanse of Lake Texcoco, under a relentless sun, stands Tenochtitlan, the jewel of an empire that defies the imagination. Canals slice through the city like veins, carrying canoes laden with vibrant feathers, gleaming obsidian, and the earth's bountiful harvest, while the air hums with the rhythmic chants of priests atop towering pyramids that pierce the sky. Stone causeways connect this island metropolis to the mainland, where farmers toil on floating gardens that seem to defy nature itself, their reflections shimmering in the still waters. The scent of copal incense mingles with the earthy aroma of maize tortillas, cooking over open fires, and the distant roar of jaguars and royal menageries echoes through the palaces, adorned with intricate murals depicting gods and heroes. Crowds throng the grand marketplace of Tlatelolco, where merchants barter turquoise from distant lands for cacao beans. Beans that serve as currency. Their voice is a cacophony of negotiation amid the flutter of quetzal plumes. Yet in this symphony of prosperity and power, an undercurrent of tension whispers through the reed-thatched homes, as if the very foundations of this colossal achievement trembled faintly, unnoticed by most, but felt by those who gaze at the stars for signs. The Aztec Empire, at its zenith in the early 16th century, sprawls across central Mexico, a testament to human ingenuity, an unyielding ambition, built on the sweat of warriors and the devotion of millions. But no one could foresee how fragile such grandeur might prove when shadows from across the sea began to stir. Long before the pyramids cast their shadows over Lake Texcoco, the people who would become the Aztecs wandered. The arid northern plains of Mexico, a nomadic tribe known as the Mexica, hailing from a mythical homeland called Aztlan, the place of herons, shrouded in legends of white lands and ancient prophecies. Driven by visions from their patron god Huitzilopochtli, the sun and war deity who appeared in dreams to their leaders, they embarked on a grueling migration southward in the 12th century, traversing harsh deserts where the wind howled like vengeful spirits and the sun scorched the earth into cracked clay. They carried with them bundles of sacred relics, their footsteps echoing across barren landscapes dotted with sparse cacti and elusive game, sustaining themselves on meager hunts and gathered roots while evading hostile tribes that viewed them as intruders. As they pressed on, the air grew thicker with humidity, and the horizon revealed glimpses of fertile valleys. But acceptance was not immediate. Established civilizations in Mesoamerica regarded these newcomers as barbarians, forcing them into marginal lands where survival meant adapting or perishing. In temporary settlements near the ruins of once mighty Toltec cities like Tula, they absorbed knowledge of stone masonry, intricate weaving, and advanced agriculture, their campfires flickering under starlit skies as elders recounted tales of past glories to wide-eyed children. Yet the god's command was clear. Continue the journey until the divine sign appeared, a promise of permanence amid endless wandering, and in the quiet moments between marshes, a sense of destiny built like gathering storm clouds, hinting that their trials were forging a people destined for empire, though the path ahead held trials that would test their resolve in ways they could scarcely imagine. Upon reaching the lush yet contested Valley of Mexico in the early 13th century, the Mexica found a landscape of interconnected lakes, Texcoco ringed by volcanoes that belched smoke like watchful guardians, their slopes terraced with fields of maize and beans under a canopy of perpetual blue. But this paradise was no empty haven. Powerful city-states like Culhuacan and Azcapotzalco dominated the region, viewing the arrivals as lowly interlopers, relegating them to swampy fringes where mosquitoes swarmed in humid evenings and the ground squelched underfoot. Hired as mercenaries in local wars, the Mexica proved their ferocity on battlefields, echoing with the clash of obsidian-edged clubs and the cries of the wounded, earning grudging respect but also enmity as they navigated alliances with cunning diplomacy. Then, in 1325, on a small, reed-choked island in Lake Tech, their priests beheld the prophesied vision. An eagle perched atop a noble cactus, devouring a serpent, its wings spread against the dawn light. A moment frozen in time as the people gathered in awe, the water lapping gently at the shores. Here, they laid the foundations of Tenochtitlan, dredging mud to create firm ground, constructing humble huts from thatch and adobe amid the constant drip of rain on broad leaves. The city's growth was painstaking, with canals dug by hand under the relentless sun, transforming the marsh into a network of waterways where the splash of paddles became the heartbeat of daily life. Temples rose modestly at first, their steps slick with morning dew, as the Mexica intermarried with local nobility, blending bloodlines and customs. Yet beneath this budding stability, rivalries simmered like the volcanic earth, foreshadowing conflicts that would propel them from outcasts to overlords, though the cost of such ascent loomed invisibly on the horizon. As Tenochtitlan expanded from a precarious island settlement into a thriving hub, the Mexica forged crucial alliances, their canoes gliding silently across the lake to negotiate with neighboring powers. The air thick with the scent of blooming water lilies and the distant rumble of thunder over the mountains. Under the rule of a Comopiculi, their first Tlatoani, in the late 14th century, they interwove with the elite of Culhuacan, adopting refined courtly manners and religious rituals that echoed through grand ceremonies where drums pounded like racing hearts. But true ascent came with its scuttle. The obsidian serpent was ascended in 1428 amid whispers of intrigue and smoke-filled council chambers, his eyes sharp as flint as he rallied warriors for war against the dominant Topanex of Aztec. Battles raged across the valley, the ground churned to mud by marching feet, shields clashing with a thunderous din while arrows whistled through the air like angry hornets, leaving fields strewn with the fallen under a pall of dust. Victory in the Teponic War reshaped the region, as its Coatls forces, allied with Texcoco and Tlacopan, dismantled the old order. The cries of captives mingling with the triumphant shouts of victors, this triple alliance cemented Tenochtitlan's primacy, its pyramids now towering symbols of dominance, adorned with skulls that gleamed in the torchlight of nocturnal rites. Expansion followed swiftly, tributaries flowing into the city like rivers, bearing gold, cotton, and exotic birds whose calls filled aviaries. Yet in the quiet aftermath of conquests, seeds of resentment took root among the subdued, a subtle fracture in the empire's facade that grew unnoticed amid the clamor of growth. With a triple alliance solidified, the Aztec Empire burgeoned into a vast dominion stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific. Its boundaries marked by garrisons where sentries scanned horizons under relentless suns, the wind carrying the salty temps of distant seas mixed with the acrid smoke of campfires. Conquests under rulers like Moctezuma I in the mid-15th century pushed armies through rugged terrains where the crunch of sandals on gravel paths echoed amid pine forests shrouded in fog, subjugating city-states that paid tribute in feathers, jade, and slaves who trudged wearily along trade routes. Tenochtitlan swelled to over 140,000 souls. Its urban grid, a marvel of planning with broad avenues swept clean at dawn, flanked by whitewashed palaces where nobles reclined on mats woven from fine reeds, the air perfumed with floral garlands, canals teemed with traffic, the rhythmic dip of poles in water accompanying the chatter of vendors hawking amaranth cakes and pulque, a fermented drink that loosened tongues in shaded patios. Aqueducts brought fresh water from mainland springs, their stone channels humming with the flow that quenched the city's thirst, while dikes controlled lake levels against seasonal floods that once threatened to swallow the island. Yet as the empire's reach extended, the burden of administration grew with scribes, inscribing codices under flickering oil lamps, tallying tributes that filled warehouses to bursting, a system efficient, yet strained by the distances and diversities. It encompassed whispering of vulnerabilities that lay dormant like faults in the earth. Life in Tenochtitlan. Where dawn broke to the cove roosters and the soft grind of matatas, women rising in the cool air to prepare meals that filled homes with the warm aroma of chilies and herbs simmering over hearth fires. Families gathered in courtyard compounds, children scampering across earthen floors while elders imparted wisdom through oral tales that wove history with myth. The silence, broken only by the occasional bark of hairless dogs kept as pets and food, Education was rigorous. Boys trained in Telpochkali schools, learning warfare amid the clash of wooden swords and the sting of discipline, their muscles aching from drills under stern instructors, while girls mastered weaving and cooking in Comicac temples, threads whispering through looms and rhythmic patterns. Nobles donned cloaks of iridescent feathers, their footsteps muffled on palace tiles inlaid with turquoise. Attending banquets were chocolate frothed in ornate cups, its bitter spice lingering on the palate. Commoners toiled in fields or workshops, the ring of hammers on stone echoing as artisans carved jade masks. They captured divine expressions, sweat beading on brows in the midday heat. Evenings brought communal gatherings, flutes trilling melodies that danced on the breeze, fostering a sense of unity amid hierarchy, yet in the shadowed alleys. Murmurs of inequality stirred as the gap between elite and masses widened like cracks. In sun-baked clay, a quiet discord that hummed beneath the surface harmony. At the empire's core throbbed a rigid social hierarchy where the Hui Tlatoani, the great speaker, ruled from a throne in a palace. Vast as a small city, his voice commanding silence in councils lit by resin torches that cast flickering shadows on walls painted with scenes of cosmic battles. Below him, nobles Pipilton held sway, their bloodlines traced to ancient heroes. Residing in opulent homes where servants moved like ghosts, polishing floors and tending gardens blooming with dahlias whose petals unfurled like secrets in the dawn light. Priests, shaven-headed and black-robed, ascended temple steps slick with ritual blood, their incantations rising in solemn tones that reverberated through the sacred precinct, enforcing divine will with unyielding authority. Warriors, eagle and jaguar knights, strode with pride, their armor clinking softly, scars from battles a badge of honor earned in fields where the metallic temps of blood mixed with the earth. Commoners McKaywilton formed the backbone, farmers and craftsmen whose calloused hands shaped the empire's wealth, paying taxes and labor in goods, their lives a cycle of toil under the watchful eyes of overseers. Slaves, often war captives or debtors, labored in silence, chains rattling faintly as they hauled burdens across causeways, their fate a reminder of fortune's cruelty. This structure, intricate as a spider's web, bound society in order, yet tension simmered in the lower strata, where whispers of unrest echoed in the quiet hours, foreshadowing strains that could unravel the threads if pulled to taut. The ingenuity of Aztec agriculture transformed the challenging lake environment into a verdant powerhouse where chinampas floated like verdant rafts on the water's surface, their soil rich and black, piled high from dredged mud that squelched under farmers' feet as they planted seeds with precise care. These artificial islands, anchored by willow stakes, yielded multiple harvests. Yearly maize stalks rustling in the breeze beans, climbing trellises squash, sprawling in leafy abundance sustained by irrigation canals, where water gurgled softly drawn by hand or foot pumps. In the early morning mist, the mild climate, with its gentle rains pattering on broad leaves and sun warming the earth, allowed for intensive cultivation, feeding the burgeoning population with surpluses that filled granaries against lean times. Aqueducts snaked from mainland springs, their fresh flow quenching fields and fountains alike, while dikes rose sturdy against floods, their stone faces etched by workers' tools. Trade flourished along waterways, canoes laden with tomatoes, avocados, and chilies gliding silently, the splash of oars mingling with coals of waterfowl. This system, a marvel of engineering, underpinned the empires, might yet it demanded ceaseless labor, hands blistered from digging and planting. And as populations swelled, the pressure on resources mounted like gathering clouds, hinting at limits that nature might impose unseen amid the bounty. Religion permeated every facet of Aztec existence, a tapestry of gods demanding reverence in temples, where the air hung heavy with the smoke of sacred fires crackling day and night. Priests intoning prayers that echoed off stone walls adorned with serpentine carvings that seemed to writhe in the half-light. Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, loomed paramount, his shrine atop the great temple, a site of solemn offerings, where the beat of drums throbbed like a collective heartbeat during festivals that drew crowds in hushed anticipation. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, embodied creation and wind. His myths recited in Comicac schools, where young acolytes fasted in dim chambers, their voices rising in choral hymns. Tlaloc, bringer of rain, received child sacrifices and rituals marked by the wail of flutes and the patter of tears, ensuring fertile seasons amid the scent of blooming flowers offered at altars. Human sacrifice, hearts excised with obsidian blades that gleamed coldly, nourished the sun's journey. The metallic scent of blood mingling with incense as bodies tumbled down pyramid steps in a cascade of finality. Calendars govern life. The 260-day Tonalpahuli intertwining with the 365-day Shupohali in a 52-year cycle, marked by new fire ceremonies, where flames leaped anew, banishing darkness. Yet, in this devotion, a fervor bordered on frenzy, as demands for captives escalated, straining alliances and breeding fear among a shadow creeping over the spiritual edifice that could precipitate its own undoing. The Aztec military, a formidable engine of expansion, marched with disciplined precision, the tramp of feet on dusty trails resounding through valleys where banners fluttered like captured winds. Warriors clad in quilted cotton armor padded against blows, their Makua whittle clubs edged with razor-sharp obsidian that whistled through the air in training drills. Eagle and jaguar knights, elite order selected for valor, prowled battlefields with predatory grace, their helmets roaring in the fray as they captured foes alive for the gods. The clash of weapons a symphony of conquest. Campaigns targeted distant provinces, armies provisioning from local stores amid the crackle of bivouac fires, subduing resistors with swift sieges where catapults hurled stones that thudded against walls. Tribute followed victory, porters bearing burdens back to Tenochtitlan, under the weight of expectation, enriching the capital while imposing garrisons that watched over restive lands with vigilant eyes. War was not mere aggression but a sacred duty, intertwined with religion, providing victims for rituals that stained altars red. Yet this perpetual conflict sowed seeds of hatred among the conquered, their subdued murmurs rising like smoke from smoldering resentments, eroding the empire's foundations in ways that swords could not mend. By the early 16th century, under Moctezuma, the empire reached its apogee, his court a splendor of gold and feathers, where ambassadors knelt in awe, the rustle of silk-like capes accompanying decrees issued in a voice steady as the lake's depths. Palaces sprawled with gardens, where exotic birds trilled melodies, and aviaries housed creatures from far realms, their calls blending with the soft murmur of fountains. Expansion continued, borders pushed against resistant foes like the Tarascans, battles raging in misty highlands where the chill air bitted exposed skin, yet victories consolidated power. Tributes swelling coffers. Moctezuma's rule emphasized pomp. Festivals illuminating the night with bonfires that crackled joyously, dancers swirling in feathered headdresses to the pulse of conch shells. Yet, omens began to appear, comets streaking the sky like fiery warnings. Lakes boiling without cause, temples weeping in the silence of midnight priests, interpreting them in hushed tones. A pall of unease settling over the city like fog. The emperor, once resolute, grew introspective, consulting oracles and dimly lit chambers where incense coiled like doubts, sensing shifts in the cosmic order that eluded grasp, portents that whispered of changes brewing beyond the horizon. Subtle fissures emerged within the empire's vast structure where tributary states chafed under the yoke of demands, their envoys departing Tenochtitlan with bowed heads, but simmering anger. The jingle of tribute chains a reminder of subjugation amid the scent of resentment. Internal politics stirred intrigue among nobles, alliances shifting like sands in council halls where whispers cut sharper than daggers, ambitions clashing in the shadows of power. Prophecies spoke of Quetzalcoatl's return, a bearded god from the east, fueling anxieties that rippled through society like tremors. Commoners exchanging fearful glances in bustling markets where the usual haggling fell silent at ill omens. Environmental strains mounted, floods threatening chinampas with waters that rose ominously, eroding edges in the night, while overcultivation wearied the soil, yields diminishing despite fervent prayers. Social divides deepened, slaves and commoners bearing heavier burdens, their labored breaths in fields a chorus of quiet discontent, while the elite indulged in excesses that echoed hollowly in grand halls. These signs, scattered like autumn leaves, went largely unheeded amid the empire's might, but they accumulated like storm clouds, building tension that hung heavy in the air, presaging a rupture that would echo through history. The Aztec Empire, forged from migration and conquest, stood as a colossus of human achievement. Its cities alive with innovation and devotion, yet in its very strength lay the seeds of vulnerability, a reminder that no realm endures without the threads of fate weaving unforeseen patterns. As the sun set over Lake Tex, casting long shadows across the pyramids where priests offered final incantations, the people carried on, unaware that the world they knew teetered on the brink. They quiet before a storm that would reshape civilizations forever.